Hey, John, how's it going?
I'm doing great, thank you.
Oh, fantastic, John. So, to start the consulting logistics, I usually like to ask our guests kind of a little bit about their background, kind of help the audience understand how they got started. So, tell me a little bit. How did you end up getting to A. Dewey Pyle? What was your experience prior leading up to it?
Yeah, it's been over a 30-year run. So I graduated from Penn State in 1983 with a degree in marketing and management. Ultimately, I spent 15 years or so, yeah, and I'll get to that in a minute. Earlier in my career, but during along the way, I actually decided to return to school and pursue an MBA, which I achieved at Duquesne University in Pittsburgh. So, and I actually have returned over the years to Duquesne and have taught it as an adjunct professor at in their supply chain school of supply chain. So, I've utilized a lot of the years' experience. I'll talk about here in a minute for the benefit of the students. But going back to when I graduated from Penn State, I started my career in trucking as a management trainee at Roadway Express. So back in the day, Roadway had an excellent leadership development program for college graduates. So I worked for Roadway, which ultimately today became YRC Worldwide for 27 years. I really rose through the organization from management trainee, as supervisor, sales representative, terminal manager at various locations in their network. Also spent time as a corporate account executive, calling on large Fortune 100 companies. Then I returned back to the operations side of the business and was the regional director of operations at various facilities in Ohio and Pennsylvania. And then I ended my career at YRC. The last 2 years, I was their group vice president, handling all of the national accounts for all their various operating companies in the Northeast area of the country. So I did choose to leave YRC in the end of 2009 to pursue an opportunity with Pitt, Ohio, a Pittsburgh-based company. So, and I worked at Pitt, Ohio until April of 2019, where at Pitt, Ohio, I was the director of enterprise sales. I managed the Eastern region and the national account team for Pitt, Ohio. I chose to leave that company again last April to join A. Duie Pyle. It was an opportunity that, quite frankly, I couldn't pass up. And earlier this year in 2020, I was elevated then to the level of senior vice president of sales and marketing for A. Duie
Wow, it's an insane career. So, especially because you just got to work so much at YRC and stuff, A. Dewey Pyle is going to be this amazing opportunity. So, talk to me a little bit about just sort of A. Dewey Pyle, and I love your like tagline of "Pile People Deliver." Talk to me a little bit about the
Pyle.
importance of the company culture there and all the fun stuff.
Sure. So the past president of A. Duie Pyle, he's retired now, Steve O'Kane, very well known in the industry. He was a president at Newpin for quite a few years, but he had a unique view on our business, and it's well known that his philosophy, and he was right on, is that we are in a people business, and it will always be a people business. People don't always look at the trucking industry as a people business, but in reality, it is a people business. So because of the drivers, the dock workers, the customer service, the terminal managers, the sales folks. I mean, all people who are dealing with our customers, people, of course, too. So, our employees are the face of the company. As an example, our drivers represent our customers in front of their customers when they deliver their freight. So we pick up freight on behalf of our customers, and then we deliver it to their customers. So the professionalism of our drivers is on display on a daily basis. The drivers are critical success of our company as they interact on a daily basis with hundreds and hundreds of accounts. So, in support of our drivers and dock personnel as a customer service team, highly trained to provide information on shipment status, rates, etc. So, Pyle's customer service is centralized, meaning that there's a consistent training that provides ever increasing levels of customer satisfaction. And the company has a long history of awards given by customers recognizing outstanding customer service. And the foundation of that is really the company's culture, the belief in that the key to our success is our people. That's why it's called the Pile people.
It's fascinating because you think about this whole new technology and how technology is kind of making the world faster and different. But it seems like, and kind of based on my reading everything, you guys are really setting yourselves up to kind of keep up with the current speed of technology. Can you talk to me a little bit about like the technology innovation you guys are bringing by focusing on your people?
Yeah, really. Supply chain visibility through the use of technology is ever changing. It's ever increasing in importance. Our people, the Pile people, need to understand. They need to embrace technology, which they do. We provide the adequate training to support that, and that's really due because our customers require full visibility of the status and movement of the product through their supply chain. This begins at the raw material stage, where our customers procure the raw material that for the manufacture of their product, and it moves through their supply chain into production, onto their warehousing, and then out to final mile delivery for the benefit of their customers. So, Pile has innovative technology, including the use of 2D barcodes on every handling unit, which allows full transparency of the product moving through our network from pickup to delivery. So every movement of the product through Pile's network is updated as the status changes. The company deploys technology such as handheld technology through various units where the barcodes and scanners are used, again, to update the status and provide that full transparency that's absolutely required in the modern supply chain. This information is made available from Pile to our customers using multiple platforms, which are really customized to the needs of that individual customer.
Yeah, it sounds like you guys really take that whole people approach first, which is just so vital. But let's talk a little bit about the whole reason kind of we're having this conversation today. That was a fun sort of warm up and stuff. But the big thing that I'm excited to talk to you today, John, is the emerging trends. You guys just have so much experience, you put so many hours into it. So what I want to talk today is just what are some of the emerging trends that you see as kind of the most important, especially for the trucking and logistics industry?
Well, I think just from a worldview, it relates definitely to trucking and supply chain, but I think this is really relevant to industries across the entire planet. Is there's really five major forces that we're seeing that's driving the rate of change, and not only in our industry, but again. For all of us, as both individual consumers and businesses and across the planet. So first and foremost, is globalization. So, globalization, our customers operate in an environment where they can source their raw material from anywhere in the world. In addition, they can sell their product to an emerging middle class across all continents. This brings great opportunity while posing significant challenges to the supply chain professional. I spoke earlier about the need for full transparency of goods moving across the supply chain. Globalization is a key reason for this customer requirement. Just look today. I mean, we're talking today in the middle of March, and how the world and globalization is being disrupted by the coronavirus. So that's just one example of what can happen, and one of the challenges of globalization. Great opportunities, but also can be of great challenge when the world, as the famous book said, the world is flat. So you can there's a great opportunity, but there's also great challenges. And from a transportation and supply chain perspective, we need to stay ahead of that to provide the services that our customers require in order to compete in what is essentially a flat world. So.
Yeah, I mean, we opened up a can of worms if we go into the whole globalization of everything, especially just given exactly where we're at right now. I know my buddies talk to me all the time, of just like, wow, like you just looking at the supply chain and some of the stuff like that. Sticking with it, let's go back to the sort of more of the five major trends. What's the
Yeah, so
second
really,
one?
yeah,
Yeah.
so the next one's technology. So our customers are utilizing technology in order to better service their customers in the most efficient manner possible. Their customers, and for that matter, their customers' customers. It's so important that the use of technology provides them a differentiator in the minds of their customer, thus allowing them a competitive advantage. So, companies are seeking ways to improve value while reducing costs. They expect their supply chain partners like Pyle to assist them in delivering value to their customers using various technology platforms, some that I've mentioned earlier. So, companies, this is another challenge, is companies are choosing to either purchase that technology or license the software from outside entities, including in our industries. It's very prevalent where companies utilize third-party logistics providers. We continue to see more and more of our small to medium size clients utilizing various forms of technology. Some of that they insource, some of it they choose to outsource to really better manage the critical areas of the supply chain. One example is the use of TMS, or transportation management software. This is software that can provide a quick review of the cost by provider down to the penny per shipment. The software is relatively inexpensive. It can be easily bolted onto a CRM or ERP systems for seamless order management. It's critical that Duie Pyle that we continue to invest in technology, as it is absolutely a requirement of our customers in order to do business with them.
And this is a little off our script, so don't feel like you can absolutely tell me like, you know what, I don't know. But talk to me a little bit, kind of sticking with technology, about the integrations, because I feel like that's one of the more fascinating elements of the whole trend coming up. But having the ability to integrate with these outsourced platforms and stuff, how vital is that to making sure that your whole operations the most efficient and running so the best way possible?
Yeah, we partner with not only our customers and the various locations of our customers, but we also partner our IT teams partner with their technology teams in order to close any gaps in that communication of their technology with our abundant amounts of platforms, technology platforms, to really deliver the information that they require. So it's something where we have to, from a sales perspective, our sales organization, we have to bring in along into these conversations subject matter experts from whether it's our EDI team, and other areas of our company in order to assist and really build in those applications.
Yeah, and I think it sort of helps, like, that point helps us transition into your kinda next major trend, which is the empowered customer. Yeah, you almost have to have SMEs on staff. You have to have these partnerships because the customer is so much more empowered. They want it there, they want it now, they wanted you to think about it before, as much as they complain that Facebook was measuring, checking what they were talking about. But talk to me a little bit about that whole empowered customer, trend.
Yeah, I mean, the empowered customer can or consumer can be no better illustrated than the rise of online shopping, namely Amazon. So, and then so many other competitors now of Amazon. Consumers have the ability to shop online for any product from around the world. However, when you think of the empowered consumer, you normally think of the individual first, meaning you and I can go online and we can purchase whatever we want online from our homes. From a business perspective view, and from the view of the supply chain professional, the empowered consumer is also that business to business professional who is managing the movement of goods end to end, from raw material to final delivery to the customer. They're empowered as well. So they're empowered to make decisions based on data and technology, including modes of transportation. They could utilize that technology to use our competitor, before they would utilize our services, and vice versa. We certainly try to leverage technology and our ability to deliver value to the empowered consumer to our advantage. So, but again, though, they could choose different modes of technology, to really deliver value to their customer and their customer's customer. So the deployment of this technology provides the basis for many of these decisions on a daily basis.
And it's so fascinating too, like, kinda keeping up with that, just the differences of how someone in a B2C or B2B world kinda uses like, deploys the technology. Like, me personally, I just don't see how mobile works in that B2B. To me, it's such a personal device that I have on me, but it's fascinating when you really start thinking about it and seeing the action behind all that stuff.
And our employees, up to again, including our drivers, they're carrying handheld units. They're scanning barcodes as freight and shipments is moving through our system. They're being updated using handheld technology. Again, the Internet of Things, right? You have the ability to tap various pieces of technology using multiple different avenues and different pieces of software and hardware in order to accomplish that. And Duie Pyle offers those type of platforms really to again address the needs of that empowered consumer. Ultimately, the companies that we're doing business with are ultimately selling the products that you and I as individual consumers are purchasing. So we're the intermediary in between, business to business. In many cases, we do some business to consumer on a final mile delivery side, but our core business is really business to business. So our focus on that empowered consumer is to satisfy the needs of our of the supply chain professional who absolutely must adapt to the changing needs and requirements of their customers.
And it's probably just a great thing because of your whole company culture in terms of being that people person, kind of people first mindset, because you kind of have that B2B mindset because you're already thinking about all that type of stuff.
Yeah, we're well set up for that, and then a increasing percentage of our business is ultimately it becoming business to consumer. It's certainly there again because of the empowered consumer. They can purchase they can go to a store. They can order it online and have it delivered to the store. They can go into a store, purchase, say, a lawnmower, and have that lawnmower delivered to their home in the event that they don't have, a pickup truck or something like that to take it to their home. So we're a part of that potentially from the B to B to the B to C. And then you can get into the whole opposite side of that from a reverse logistics side. If the lawnmower doesn't work, then we can go out and pick it up and bring it back. But again, reverse it back to the distribution center and or the store. So that empowered consumer, companies are having to adapt to that empowered consumer in the way that they manage their supply chain.
Absolutely. And I'm sorry for getting a little off base. So let's get back to the trends. What's the number four kind of major trend you're seeing?
Yeah, so another one is organizational consolidation. Companies are merging and consolidating businesses in order to leverage scale in the market. So going back to the first point, globalization. Companies are having to compete on a global basis with potentially larger competitors in different areas of the world. Certainly, China comes to mind, Europe, Asia, other areas in Asia. So, U.S. companies then are merging. They're acquiring businesses. They do this to not only develop expertise potentially in additional areas of the world. That would provide them access to new markets. In addition, consolidating companies is used to reduce competition in some markets where supply may exceed demand. So the effect of this on our company can be drastic as mergers and consolidations and organizational changes can disrupt long-term relationships that we may have with customers because it tends to change decision making. It can change the way that they manage and operate their supply chain. They may, we operate primarily in the Middle Atlantic and the Northeast. if a company merges with a southeastern U.S. based company, they may decide to ship their goods or store and ship their goods from another area of the country, which is not within our core service area, and that can change. That can have a negative effect on our revenue. So organizational consolidation, though, is it can bring a lot of complexity, a lot of unknowns into our company, and we're seeing it as it continues to emerge, not only at the small to mid level companies, but certainly from our some of our largest accounts.
Yeah, jeez. I mean, especially right now, we're just living in the world as we record. Not to date this or anything, we're just living in a very interesting time, given what's happening. So I imagine the organization consolidation is just really living out its full effect right now. We're starting to run a little bit later on time, so let's move a little quicker to the next, kind of the last sort of major trend you're seeing.
Yeah, so government policy and regulation, the hand of government, whether it's here in the US or North America or around the world, is a constant challenge for the supply chain professional. The regulation of the trucking industry has been changing over the years. Government sets the amount of time a driver can work in a period of time. So we have to make changes. Our customers have to change and adapt to the various government regulations, and they can be complex because they're not always consistent across cities and states and countries. So it does add complexity and brings in, anytime you talk about the government and regulation and policy, it's constantly changing, whether it's the Republicans or the Democrats or again, Canada, Mexico, China. Huge potential for disruption in our industry, and it's something that we have to be very, very aware of and watch and stay close to the trends. Because if we're not adapting to these trends around government regulation and policies, we could be find ourselves at a disadvantage. And again, due to government policy and regulations, that can also have an effect on where we place locations and terminals, and how we manage our network. And even more importantly, government regulation has an effect on where our customers operate and where they set up their manufacturing plants or their distribution centers. A lot of that is based on regulation and cost and access to roads and waterways and rail and things like that. So this fifth bullet point, while the other four are not as important, but this fifth bullet point, especially in the world in which we live in now, can really create a lot of challenges from a supply chain, and for those of us at A. Duie Pyle. So
I can't. Literally, my mind's like racing right now, just thinking about how fast change in policy occurs now. I mean, there's just things that occur that are happening within hours of things just changing. So it's definitely something that's crazy to have to kind of keep up with and kind of manage. But it's amazing just kind of how you guys are doing a great job with it. Just given your kind of your culture and all that type of stuff.
well,
I
just
know
look
we're
at look at the demographics and some of the things that we're seeing from the population perspective, around the world and definitely here in the U.S. So more and more people are moving to urban areas. Back when I was growing up, it was fashionable to move to the suburbs. Where I can tell you though that again, the demographics in the country, not that they're leaving and moving away from the suburbs, but there is definitely more and more people who are attracted to the cities. They're attracted to urban life, and that is creating some challenges for the industry, and certainly challenges and opportunities for A. Dewey Pyle, because we have to adapt. We have to operate in more congested areas, where it's more difficult to get around. It's more expensive. We can't deliver as efficiently in urban areas as we can in the suburbs or in industrial parks and things like that, where there's easy access on and off to major highways. You operate in an urban area, it's much more costly. So it sets up some unique challenges for us that we have to be very, very aware of as both an industry, as a company. And Pile, we're adapting to that through we're investments in electric truck technology and more straight trucks as a percentage of our overall fleet, because again, because more and more of our business, both B2B and B2C, we're finding is ultimately consigned to urban areas of the country. So the other challenging thing is infrastructure. So our country needs to invest in infrastructure. It has not been investing in infrastructure at a level that's absolutely required to improve the productivity of not only trucking's ability to operate efficiently, but other modes of transportation as well. So it's a challenge. It's a challenge for all of us in the industry. We certainly watch it very, very closely from a company perspective.
That topic alone almost deserves its own episode of just the urbanization, and you compound it with those 5 trends that we just talked about, John. It's just the urban, like, empowered consumer living in this area where they need all this delivery and they have this attitude of "Give it to me now," because they're just so connected in more of a technology way. It's crazy. But yeah, I know we're running really close on time, John. So before we wrap up, I'd hate to like not talk to you about this, but there's 2 things I want to kind of wrap up with. The first thing is the inefficiencies, and I just kind of want to see sort of what are the biggest inefficiencies you're seeing in trucking right now, and I want to take it from 2 different perspectives. I want to do from that shipper perspective, and then from the carrier perspective, because it's something I hear a ton, especially when it comes to kind of what's happening in transportation. Is there's a lot of inefficiencies. What do you see as kind of the biggest inefficiencies from a shipper's perspective?
From a shipper's perspective, again going back to infrastructure and our ability as a carrier to operate in a where roads and bridges are either in need of repair, or they are in many instances already under repair, and that restricts access, or road closures causes delays, which has a downstream effect when customers are requiring deliveries at a certain time period, whether it's a day or an hour, and the trucking company's inability to meet those schedules, again because of infrastructure or road closures or highways that are either too congested or under construction, and thus there's a delay. So that, coupled with from a shipper's perspective, that over the past 10 years or so, there are less and less carriers operating, definitely in the Northeast. So capacity is being restricted just through simple economics, where there's been some major failures of carriers, financial failures over the last few years, which has restricted access to capacity. It's very good for those of us that have invested, as a Duie Pyle has over the years, in their network, in our network, to ensure that we are financially viable over in the coming years. So, but shippers are definitely impacted by a less capacity than what they enjoyed 10 years ago. So, and the trucking industry is a difficult market to enter. So while existing carriers may open up new terminals and expand geography, in general, there are hardly, or there are very few, if any, brand new companies started. It's more expansion of existing companies into new geographic markets. But in reality, though, that's still capacity is restricted.
Absolutely. And then from a carrier's perspective, kind of it sounds like to me it's sort of the same thing. The infrastructure is really difficult. The customer is also making it difficult. What's the other kind of inefficiencies you're seeing?
The other is access to talent, or if you drive down the Pennsylvania Turnpike and look up into the cab of anyone's tractor trailer, you're probably going to see, in many instances, the person driving it is going to have gray hair. So the average age of the truck driver, of the average U.S. truck driver, is easily in their 40s. And for some companies, they're in their 50s. So it's a challenge for us to market the driving as a profession. That's why we have a very active program where we go into the high schools to recruit. You have a percentage of high school graduates who are going to go to college or some kind of a trade school, and then you have a percentage of them that have chosen to go into the military. We try to recruit them at that point where they've chosen possibly not to enter into any of those avenues. They join our company. We start them on the dock, train them just on Freight 101, and they can graduate up through driving box trucks and straight trucks, and then all the way up to tractor trailers. So that's to fulfill our need and our challenge from a human resource perspective in that driving area. So it's a huge challenge for not only A. Duie Pyle, but for the industry as a whole.
Yeah, and it's not just the truck driving. I mean, the thing that I hear a lot, and it'd be a shame if I didn't ask you this question, so I gotta ask you. But talk to me about the talent, especially in terms of supply chain management and kind of what you do, what you're seeing, because I've talked to professors, and I hear there's just a different ability to recognize problems in the supply chain with the newer kind of kids is a bad word, but the newer students kind of coming into the job market and whatnot. Can you talk to me a little bit about just attracting them and making them kind of see where actual issues are and how they can kind of approach it?
Well, I think the college seniors who are going to graduate from a school of supply chain or have a major in supply chain management, they have so many avenues. They could go to a manufacturer and work in inventory. They could work in their transportation department. They could work in their distribution center or forecasting, inventory, things like that. So they have multiple avenues in which to utilize that training or that education with that degree coming out of a school of supply chain. From our perspective, we need to, as we recruit at the university level for our leadership development program, we're challenged because we're competing against major organizations who are also trying to attract talent coming out of those supply chain schools. And we're a 24-hour, 7-day a week operation on the trucking side. And some of the university graduates, they would prefer to work 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. And in our side, in the transportation side of the supply chain, we're running 24/7, 365 days out of the year. You may be working on a Friday night. You may be working on a Saturday night. Certainly earlier in your career, I did it when it was early in my career. So I worked a lot of nights and weekends. I think the challenge nowadays is that the graduating students, especially from these supply chain schools, we're finding that may not be willing to, not in all cases, but in some cases, they may not be willing to really set aside what they think is, the most attractive personal side of their life in order to invest in the training that's required to learn our business, which is more the transportation side of that supply chain.
Wow, that's crazy. Again, you can just say I don't know, but what where do you think where's the disconnect coming? Why don't they they recognize it? Like, hey, you're kind of bottom of the totem pole. As much as you've got this education and this information, you still have to roll up your sleeves. You're still going to have to be here, especially in a field like transportation and logistics.
Well, I think we obviously we try to when we're recruiting, we're selling them on the culture here at A. Duie Pyle, and it's just important to for them to understand, and it's important for us to communicate to them that in order to learn our business, You need to experience it, in all areas at all times of the day and night. If you really feel as though you would prefer to work Monday through Friday daylight, then you may be restricting, in some respect, your career options because you're going to be siloed into potentially into positions where that could limit your options. So.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I do we do on this podcast, we do a series called Supply Chain Under 30 or SCU 30. And we talk to professionals in the supply chain that are under the age of 30. And it's interesting to kind of hear what their experience is like and things where when they find it, when they get it, they're excited about it. They've got this passion that's pretty interesting to see. But yeah, I'll stop kind of bothering you so much. We'll kind of start to we will wrap up. But there is one thing that my CEO asked me to ask you. So let me. The thing that we find interesting here is definitely the LTL experience, kind of knowing it's not like a truckload experience. There's a little more kind of bigger companies kind of working in that thing. What do you think the LTL experience is going to be like in 10 years? Kind of seeing all the new innovations that are occurring, stuff like dimensionalizers and things like that. Where do you kind of see it going in 10 years? Is the experience just going to be completely different?
Yeah, I think we still in the LTL side of our business and the LTL industry in general, we there are rules, regulations, generally accepted practices that date back to the 20s and the 30s. The way that we classify, rate our business using the National Motor Freight Classification System. It's a relic of regulation that's it's long overdue to be sunsetted. So in the next 10 years, I would fully expect that our industry, especially LTL, will move more towards a density based rating system where customers, whether it's through their technology or we'll just utilize our technology or combination of both, will be able to quickly take a profile of each and every shipment, be able to quote, rate, and bill it at that particular. Basically, it's the density and the amount of space that that particular shipment takes up in a trailer. So there's again the classification system that we currently use and have had and have been using in our industry for decades, needs to be sunsetted and replaced. It's been talked about for many years. It still has not fully taken shape, but I believe over the next 10 years, again, because of technology, that it will ultimately move into that rating system.
There's probably an audible cheer going through Aborn right now when they hear that. That's an awesome way to wrap up, John. I can't thank you enough for giving me as much time as you did, John. Let the people know how you can, if they want to connect with you, if they kind of want to say hi or tell you anything. Is there a way they can connect with you?
Yeah, the best way is to send me an email at my first letter J, last name Tillison at aduiepyle.com.
Awesome, John. Thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you.
And that's our show. What else should have I asked John about, especially given the disruptions we're experiencing? Let me know in the comments section. And as always, like this video and subscribe to the channel to see more content like this. Thanks for watching Consulting Logistics. I'm Kyle McNaught. Peace.